Obviously, being a director, you're involved in every step of the process when you're making a project, even if it's just a short film. But here are a specific few ways in the edit the director can improve their project. You know, when you wrap on the day and the lights are turned off and the people go home and snooze in their bed, the movie's not done. The movie is, quote, in the can, which comes from when they shot on film. But then you go into a very important process right after that is called the edit, or post-production, or hell. No, I got my start in post-production. I've been editing professionally for over 10 years at this point, and it has led to a lot of opportunities to create projects because I know how to finish them in the edit. Having an introduction to filmmaking through post-production honestly was a great way for me to develop as a director, because I understood by putting other projects together what was necessary. And oftentimes when we're working on projects, the shots are longer than they need to be, and you know, they don't make sense past a certain point in the script. So to be able to reverse engineer what is needed into a script, I find very valuable. And yes, we're going to talk about it, and yes, I hate it, but it's called coverage. And not to demean it, like, it's a perfectly fine way to make a film, and it's a perfectly reasonable way to approach a scene, but practically what coverage means is that on the day, you're going to take your 1 to 2 page scene and you're going to set the camera in one spot, focus on one character, and you're going to run the entire scene. Then you're going to move the camera into a different spot, maybe a close-up on that same person, maybe a reverse, maybe a 50-50, whatever, and you're going to run the scene again. And then you're going to turn the camera around, you're going to run the scene again. And that is what entails coverage. And what you're going to end up with is options to cut in the edit. Now, in my previous video where I broke down a feature film script, you can look at it right here, I talked about the different ways to approach coverage. And when you're breaking down your script, you can find different points where tones change. These are called turns. And in these turns, you can switch your coverage. So you don't necessarily need to do coverage for the entire scene, especially if it's a long, like 5 or 6 page scene. Your actors are going to get burned out. They're going to get really tired. But if you identify in the script where the tone changes, you can change your coverage for those specific segments. But go check out that video if you want to know more about that. But anyway, so we're in the edit. You get the coverage. Now we're putting the content onto the timeline. At this point, the director has a very specific responsibility, and it is to curate what content is in the piece. This might seem super basic, but honestly, like, you have the responsibility as a director to show the audience specific things and to decide when they see them. There'll be times where I'm watching a movie where, I didn't get an insert of the thing that they were talking about, or, there wasn't a reverse of that person when they said this line, or, the camera's really far away from their face while they're having a really emotional moment. Those are the kind of decisions that as a director you get to make if you have coverage, and you get to make those things in the edit. The other thing that you get to do with the edit specifically is to control the pace of the performance. Now, if you were growing up in the 1950s, your films looked like this, a lot of wide takes and 2 shots where the acting carried the pace of the performance. The actors decided, or it was decided on the day by the director, how fast or slow to play a scene, when to pause, when to take note, when to speed up, when to be funny. All of those things were curated on the day and then captured with the camera, and more or less that part was just put into the film. Now, with coverage, you have the option to slow down or quicken the pace of the performances, and it can change the way a scene feels. So I'm going to open up a scene from our short film, The Session, which you can check out right here. If you don't know the context, basically there's this producer who's holding this recording artist hostage and trying to get a song out of her. But it plays like this in the final cut.
Please don't hurt me.
Oh, please stop stammering. You know what this is? It's a contract you signed with LCA.
My record label? You're with my label?
Section 28, subsection H and I. The artist, that's you, is required to be cooperative with and in a timely manner any and all musical requirements by the label, including but not limited to guest sessions, live coverage, jury duty. Look, I'm just trying to do my job, so if we could please get back to it.
What?
What? What do you mean, what? You're a piano player and it's time to play.
Let me go.
That's not how this works, Brandy.
You want me to play?
I think it would be really helpful.
Okay.
I can't do that.
Are you serious?
Look, I'm just trying to do
Let me
my
out,
job.
you crazy bitch boy!
I'll let you get it out of your system, Brandy.
So obviously this isn't colored or finalized. This is a piece that I pulled directly out of the assembly edit to show you what I could do as a director in this moment. So you can see that the door opens.
Please don't hurt me.
Oh, please stop stammering. You know what this is? It's your contract you signed with LCA.
My record label? You're with my label?
So that little part where she says my record label, that was to give this clip a little bit more time to get focus back to the director. Because the focus was a little slow, but it was the take that we liked the most. So we actually pulled her audio back, you can see right here, to cover this, to happen underneath this primary clip. This is what's called a J cut. And the reason it's called a J cut is because the video clip starts after the audio. I guess it's reverse. And it makes a J. And so it's a J cut.
What do you mean, what? You're a piano player and it's time to play.
Let me go.
So they you can kind of see they're talking on top of each other a lot. Now, something I could do, and something I will try to do, is elongate this little interaction right here.
What?
What? What do you mean, what? You're a piano player and it's time to play.
You can see right here that the audio of
What do you mean, what?
it happens in a different take, and I've pulled it into this one so we can get the timing right. But I'm going to just pull, just for funsies, we'll pull this out along with the what do you mean what? We'll pull this out as far as we can, and we'll pull this clip of her bewilderment until she says her next line. So there's going to be a lot more space here. Now feel the difference.
What?
What? What do you mean, what? You're a piano player and it's time to play.
Let me go.
So then we'll do the same thing here. We'll pull this out so we get more of his until he starts to react. We'll elongate it as long as possible to create more tension.
What?
What? What do you mean, what? You're a piano player and it's time to play.
Let me go.
That's not how this works, Brandy.
And we could actually pull this out again as well.
That's not how this works, Brandy.
So see how different the scene feels.
What?
What? What do you mean, what? You're a piano player and it's time to play.
Let me go.
That's not how this works, Brandy.
So you can see the feeling that you can create as a director by elongating or shortening different parts of a scene. And coverage allows you to do this. You get to play with the timing of everything. Now, obviously, like when you go to shoot something, it's a lot, I think it's more impressive and more interesting when the actors are in the same shot interacting with each other. I made this over a year and a half ago, and honestly, with every project, you know, you look back with a certain amount of hindsight and you would like to do things differently. But in this particular part of the scene, it is actually an exposition dump. We are trying to provide context for why she is here in the first place. So I don't want to spend too much time letting this play out because the audience is going to get it, right? She's in a recording studio. She's next to a piano. She's tied to a piano. Like the context clues are there. You want to try to stay ahead of the audience with information. It's one reason why I cut this scene quicker.
You want me to play?
I think it would be really helpful.
Okay.
I can't do that.
Are you serious?
Look, I'm just trying to do
Let me
my
out,
job.
you crazy bitch boy!
I'll let you get it out of your system, Brandy.
And you can see at the end of that, the aspect ratio overlay went away. And you can see kind of like the difference that it feels. I'll leave the LUT on. The difference it feels between these two things. It feels very cordial almost, like these two shots. Like the tension to me isn't there. As soon as you add the black bars, it starts to feel a little more adversarial. One comment I would say is that this shot we used quite a lot because the nature of her character is very confrontational, right? Profile shots tend to communicate confrontation because if you are standing in a group of 3 people and 2 people are having an argument, you are seeing the sides of their faces. It starts to feel like you're not a part of the conversation, right? There's some sort of confrontation happening between these 2 people. It can do 2 things. It can make the audience feel excluded, or it can communicate tension. And to me, in this instance, communicates tension. But he is being very open with her. You know, this is another day at the office for him. That's one reason why I chose this particular angle for him. Even with the limitations of not having everything you need, one of the things is because we have coverage, we can manipulate the timing of things, and we can make this work in a way that's maybe a little bit different than we intended on the day. And really, coverage is a safety mechanism so that you have everything for the scene for it to work. The worst thing is when an actor does something that's improvised or, some sort of detail with their hand, and we don't end up shooting it because we don't have time, or it doesn't get caught. And then you're in the edit and you're thinking, oh man, I don't really have it. And that's one reason why a lot of directors use multiple cameras. Is we use multiple cameras on this as well, so that every setup was 2 setups, so we got double the footage out of every single setup. Because of the time crunch and because of the location limitations and all of those factors, we felt like we had to shoot it that way because we knew we weren't going to have time to craft each individual shot. We just had to make it work, and a big way that we made that work was through coverage and making it work in the edit. We're going to hop over to a different scene, which is a conversation between her and the producer. And I think it's the moment where they try to have some sort of connection. It's actually but they're in different rooms. So this is an example of, like, you have to shoot it separately because they're in different spaces. Okay, so we're going to play through this scene really quick.
Randy.
What?
You know, sitting like that for long periods of time, it's not really safe.
Shut up.
No, seriously. Extended lack of proper circulation to the lower appendages can often lead to loss of feeling and compromised muscle memory.
Who are you?
I'm not at liberty to disclose that information to the talent due to my contract.
Talent?
I'm just here to facilitate the acquisition of recording. You know, I'm actually really excited about today. I remember the first recordings you sent into the lab.
So you can see kind of the beginning is very touch and go, right? He's trying to establish some sort of rapport, and she is rejecting him. That is reflected in the pacing. And I feel like if it was any faster, we would lose that tension. So this little segment right here, he's trying to build rapport.
You know, I'm actually really excited about today. I remember the first recordings you sent into the label. It was about 5 years ago or so. Well, I was an assistant then, but I remember it vividly.
She starts to soften. She starts to understand the timeline. She's like, 5 years ago, that's right around this time that this thing happened to me. It's right around the time I got to Los Angeles. That's right around the time I started trying to make it in the music business. And so he has some sort of connection to her in that regard. And I like her performance. But it doesn't really kick up until he says 5 years ago, because this is actually in time. He's off camera, and we timed up his audio to mix or to match what he was actually doing in the room, which was super helpful. So obviously, like, controlling the pace of the performance is a big part of the edit, and it's a big part of being a director. So you can either choose to control the pace of the performance on the set by working with your actors, or you control the pace of performance in the edit by cutting between coverage or cutting between inserts back to singles. It's a big reason that Christopher Nolan, when he shoots his films, he shoots clean singles of all of his actors, or at least over the shoulders, so that he can cut between them. That allows him to do a lot of his directing, which in my mind is timing. He gets to create a lot of the timing of the performance in the edit. And I think that can be good, but I think it can be detrimental. It can make your film feel very one note. It can start to visually feel very shot, reverse shot, 50-50. Like, I don't know how many shots I saw in Oppenheimer where it was like establishing shot of context with two actors looking at each other, and then a shot of actor A, and then a shot of actor B. And they say their stuff, and that's the scene. Literally so many scenes were like that. I think that is good for some scenes. I don't think it's good for every scene. There are plenty of scenes that would be more interesting and more vibrant if you moved the actors around the space and the camera tracked them, or if the camera was floating between them. There are plenty of directors who have done work where multiple actors are having moments in the same frame. And I think that is a lost art in a lot of ways. So I'm going to show you really quick. This scene doesn't have one, but the other type of edit that you can use is what's called an L cut. It's the opposite of a J cut. And basically it's where the video of the clip starts before the audio of the clip. So right here we have,
You want me to play?
so I'm going to pull that up and I'm going to pull it over, and we're going to see what the L cut looks like.
How this works, Brandy. You want me to play?
That's an L cut. These types of transitions are key to keeping the flow of the scene going. You don't want each person to just say their thing and then wait a second and then cut to the next scene and everybody says their thing and then cut to the next scene, everybody says their thing. That's just, it's boring. It's not how conversation feels. A lot of times when you're talking to somebody, you're thinking about what they're saying and you're interpreting it in a different way. If you watch yourself while you're having conversation, they'll say, yeah, okay, my parents grew up in Cincinnati, blah, 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 and they used to go to this place. Like, you're now thinking about what Cincinnati is and how Cincinnati is and where is that and all those things while the other person is describing it. That's the psychology behind why these cuts help smooth out these conversations, because it's natural. It's the way that we experience life already. Now, obviously, if you have shortcomings in your scenes or in your pieces, you can definitely use sound and sound effects to fix your problems that you have with your edit. And it's oftentimes the sound that carries you through the piece. If you're ever going to make a project, never skimp on sound, because it is half of the viewing experience. If you have bad sound, no one's going to take your project seriously, and it's going to take you out of it. It is definitely taken for granted, but it is such an important piece. But when you're shooting, be sure to record what is called nat sound, natural sound. This is environmental sound. This is the sound of the set. Like, with every take, be sure and roll, because you're going to get a lot of different types of sound effects, and you're going to get a lot of ambiences that are going to help you in the edit. And finally, my last directing tip would be record wild lines. That's what it's called in the industry, but basically that's where the actors, the camera doesn't roll, the actors just stand close to the microphone and they do their performances. And you record that audio and you can use it in the edit. And the way that you would direct that is basically one character does their line, they stop. This character does their line, they stop. It can feel a little stop and go and a little unnatural, but honestly, those wild lines will come in so handy if you have some sort of issue on set, or if you need them to say something off screen and you didn't get it, or the video doesn't match it, or what have you. Like, it can come in so clutch, and you just need just prioritize sound. It's so worth it. Now, obviously, this isn't a comprehensive list, or otherwise this video would be 20 hours long, but these are a few things that you can do as a director to make sure that your edits work and flow and are really good. And just making sure that you get the assets you need in your project production days, and then utilizing these techniques, I think you can end up with some pretty decent edits. So if you found this helpful, please subscribe and hit the bell and all the jazz. Yeah, thank you.